every single one just to do it. So we don't want to just do something for the sake of doing it. We want to go through and pick the most important elements. Okay. So first section, fill in the blank. Second section, multiple choice. Third would be more open-ended question, where they personalize their response. All right. The remaining part of the act is more a deeper understanding of the context, which would be what? Sounds like context. Yes, subtext. So we want to move on from context to subtext. Now, subtext, when reading a book, is incredibly difficult, even for a native English speaker that's reading a book. It would be a lot difficult for the students as well, but we at least want them to try to get there, try to understand why the character is doing something and acting a certain way, rather than just knowing that the character has done something. Okay? So within this, there are different patterns of questions as well, so multiple choice and then open-ended. Okay? But most important with the subtext, really emphasize this, is the artwork. Is anyone a fan of art, fine art? Okay, so maybe 2 out of the 12 of you. So the struggle here that a lot of teachers have is they can't interpret the art. That's okay. Okay, so if you can't interpret the art, that's totally fine, but at least let the students then compare the different images. So some artwork sections have multiple images where you're just comparing the different colors, the different tones, the different atmospheres. Then they're connecting it back to the subtext. Why are we even looking at this artwork? Well, maybe it had to do with something the character went through, or it had to do with a major event that's coming up, something like this. Other times there's only one artwork. So then you're just really exploring that artwork. But if you're not one of those people that are comfortable with the fine art, and you think that there's something that's more, it's going to make more sense to your students, that's just more modern art or just an image, you can insert that as a media card in this
Modern
section.
art's easier to understand.
Well,
Comic books.
comic books, okay, whatever you want. So just something though where they can connect to something visual. And the reason we're doing visual here is because, well, when we look at something that is art, we usually feel something, right? So it's usually like, oh, I don't like this. And then we want to explain why. What's making you feel that way? Or, oh, this is really nice. Why? What's making you feel that way? Connect that back to the subtext. Okay. But again, if you don't want to use the fine art and you're really against it, you can definitely make your own media cards and insert your own visual piece. Okay. The literary lesson. This isn't like going to be the major component in V1, but we do want them to at least understand different literary techniques that authors may use, and also prepare the student with these tools so that they can improve their ability to be creative in their writing. So it's going to be sectioned off again, step by step, and the first section would be the learn, which is basically, they just give you the skill and they talk about what it is. So in this skill it was imagery. And they just kind of talk about what it is, give you an example from the book. What would be the next step after you learn something?
Fine.
Yeah, exactly. You try it. So there's going to be usually some exercises that you have to apply what you just learned. Okay? And then finally, discuss it as a class. So a nice, easy process. But again, if this is more applicable in the beginning, like actually imagery, I might put that in the beginning, especially with the artwork and the subtext and things. It might be nice to learn what that is before doing the reading. But it's kind of flexible where you want to put this section. Okay. The reason though that we put the literary analysis, literary lesson after the acts is because right after that they do their project. So in their story project, there's always going to be a writing component. So that's where we want them to use that literary lesson in their final output. So basically the project, it's where the student is now, after they've learned about what happened to the characters, understood why the characters did it, now they're going to personalize it, what they would do, or empathize with the character. So they get a prompt. Okay? After the prompt, they get a specific point of view that they have to then think about. So it could be like, what do you think, in so-and-so's point of view, what would they have done in this situation? And usually it's related to a main character in the book, or a main character in that act. Okay? After they empathize, they personalize what they would have done. After they personalize, they imagine. Okay, so now they're doing kind of the ideation process of their project. And within that, I've cropped it so I could fit it in this PowerPoint, but there are several steps. All you have to know is follow the steps. So it'll just really guide you through how to do that. Next, create the project. In the create section, there's always going to be some sort of aid. So they might give you key expressions, key vocab words, and that's where I'd highly encourage your students to use those. Okay. Even if it's a writing project day, if you have extra time, please let your students share the writing sample. It doesn't have to be all the students that share, it could just be 1 or 2 in that class, but they're always going to share something. Presentation day, they're actually going to present, they're going to use their tabs, they're going to use an application, and put that to work. Story projects. So this is where there's the different types of projects. And I think if you know this ahead of time, it will help you prepare more for the class and won't confuse you. So the first part would be the students just doing it by themselves. And they're just going to write a diary, and it will usually reflect what happened in the story. So that's nice and simple. After that, they do an interview, so they work with somebody. So as you can see, we're kind of building up the project process, right? Work by yourself, work with a partner. For the interview, they can present the interview and then have a discussion, peer evaluation on how it went, what was interesting, like this. After that, they have a group skit. So now they're working in a group, and they usually act out something that would, again, relate to the theme or an idea that they talked about in class. That one, you do want to use your tabs recorder, the Slp Recorder. Record them in class and upload that on the MERP so that parents can view that at home and they can view it and that sort of thing. Okay? Also, we can view it too when you upload. Then we go back to a writing activity, but instead of a diary, it's going to be a story activity, where they, since now it's going to be, the 4th week of the book, either week 4 or week 10, they should have learned the major story arc or points. So now they can kind of put together their own story. Then, as we're approaching the end of the book, we do a summary of what's happened so far. So there's still one lesson left before the book is over. And this is kind of nice because it's like, what do you think is going to happen at the end of the book? Right? So just a summary of what's happened as a class. Finally, a movie campaign. So this is, has anyone taught 2020? No? Yes? Okay. In 2020, how do we do the projects? Don't remember?
I mean, we just did it collaboratively in class.
Okay.
Kind of
Did everyone do the same
deviated.
project though?
Different projects.
Right. So 2020, the difference of 2020 and CTPs, where CTPs, they just all have the same project prompt. 2020, we divided the class, and this group did this group did this group did this. There's a different style. So the movie campaign is similar. You're going to have your class, you want to divide them into groups. Each group does a different component of the movie campaign. So either a poster or a advertisement or something like this. So that's kind of fun. Again, you want to record that one. Finally, week 13. We're going to combine the 2 books that they've read and merge them. And it's like a compare-contrast of the 2 books. The similarities between characters, the differences between characters, and so on. Okay?
What about during the level up test, the achievement test? What?
So the achievement test usually takes place in week 10. If it does, they just do a personal essay in this week. And the personal essay only takes up maybe like an hour or less of the class. So the remaining class, you just go on with the lesson. And then in the skill classes, so C1, for example, that's where they do the actual, the TOEFL Junior or the IBT. But in the story modules, they only do personal essays. Okay. Is that confusing anyone? I'm getting some weird looks. So a personal essay, what this is it's rather than expository essay, they're writing something that, an experience they've had, or using examples from their life, using those literary tools to describe things and try to set a tone, set an atmosphere within their writing, which is very different than, here's my main idea, here's my 3 reasons why. So in the story module, since we're really trying to emphasize these story elements, they're going to be writing an essay in their 10th, usually their 10th week, and that will help evaluate whether or not they move up a level or they stay in the level. But there's many different factors, like they have learning points that they gain in class, they get the personal essay, they also have the achievement test, the traditional one, where they do the reading questions, the listening questions, and there is a writing component in that as well, but that's done in a separate class. So all these factors will determine whether or not they level up. Oh, and their homework, if they complete their homework. Okay, so now I want to move on from project to social learning. So right now I want you guys to think about what SNS, what types of social networking sites that you are interested in. And think about why you're interested in those sites. So, what's the main reason why we would maybe visit a social networking site? Check on your friends, yeah. News, okay, yeah. Events. What's the most popular networking site that you guys use? Facebook, very common. Okay, so now let's think about Facebook then. So we have the news on the news feed. We have our friends that we check up on. Why is this so successful? What's the key factor in it being successful?
Everyone uses relationships.
Relationships. It's a network, right? We're trying to take this kind of concept of a network. Since us being Cheongdan, we have that network. We have that pool of 27,000 something students, okay, and hopefully more, plus the 800 more faculty. So we're trying to take this network that we have, this asset that we have, and take our education program a step further by allowing our students to maybe communicate. Why? Because we want our students to be able to think outside the box, to understand different perspectives. But also, in the social learning aspect, actually, what do you guys think social learning is to you? What would that be?
Learning from your relationships.
Learning from relationships, yeah. But beyond that?
Peers teaching peers.
Peers teaching peers, okay. So in our 2.0 days, the social learning would occur where? In class. That's like where it's limited, right? So with the 3.0, with our technology, we want to move outside the class, but even further than outside the class, outside the country. So with our social learning, we have developed a website called Loudest Brain. Has anyone heard of this website? Some of you? Okay. If you have not, I highly, highly encourage you to use this in your classes. We need this to really take off in order to be successful, in order to actually have an impact. So what Loudest Brain is this. So I just took a quick little screenshot of what's on our Loudest Brain page right now. So it's literally loudestbrain.com, okay? And as long as you have a Cheongdam ID, you can log in as a teacher. And then you can explore what's going on in here. So I'm just gonna go over it really quick. First section here is called extensive learning. So if you're teaching V1, there are actually extensive learning activities that's on this site. And what that is it's just additional supplementary resources for students to better understand what's happening in class. For the C2 classes, for instance, there would be more information on a certain topic. For V1, there's more information maybe on an author, maybe on, if you're reading a book about a war, on that war, something like this. And then they can go on there just to learn about it. You, as a teacher, can actually use this in class as well. So if you decide, I can't really think of a good media card to use, let's just jump on Loudest Brain. Everyone in the class can jump on Loudest Brain and do an activity in class as well. It's up to you to utilize this, okay? Next, we have what's called PBL. Can you guys guess what that stands for?
Performance-based learning?
Oh, close. Based learning, yes. Performance, similar.
Project?
Project-based learning, yes. So we want
Absolutely.
this to be the highlight. So on there we have all sorts of different things. We have cool little videos that would inspire students to make interesting projects. So in 2.0, right, students come up, they present the presentation like this, right? And it's the same thing over and over again. With 3.0, we were hoping that students would take the tab and find some cool applications and present. But still there's one step further. Now we're noticing students come up, they have their TV, they have their pad, and then they just show a presentation this way. But it does not have to be limited that way. So we put a lot of cool project outputs on there. Again, not even Chengdan made. They were just found on the internet that were interesting. So there's some videos where they're using Lego pieces and they're like moving around, or you know, different things like that. So you can allow students